Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Baseball Time Traveler channel. My name is Rob, and I want to thank you for joining me today as we go back to 1954. We're going to take a close look at Willie Mays, Game 1 of the World Series between the Cleveland Indians and the New York Giants, September 29th, 1954. Before we get to the game, I just want to review some of the historic events that took place during 1954 to give us some context to this game and what was happening in the world at that time. January 1, 1954, we start with the Tournament of Roses parade in Pasadena, California. The Rose Bowl game was played between the UCLA Bruins and the Michigan State Spartans. Michigan State prevailed in the game, but later in the 1954 regular season, UCLA was ranked number one in the national championship poll, and that was their first and only time that they won the National Football Championship. Some other key events in 1954, Walt Disney introduced his first television program called Walt Disney's Disneyland, which was designed to raise funds for a theme park that he was building in Anaheim, California, which opened in July of 1955. And we all know it as Disneyland. In the middle picture there, Marilyn Monroe marries Jolton Joe DiMaggio, one of two famous weddings that occurred in 1954, the other being that of my parents, who were married on September 11th, 1954. On the far right, we have the newspaper indicating the famous Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision, a landmark ruling that banned segregation in public schools. In the lower left, Westinghouse Corporation introduced the first color televisions for public use. The article that you see there, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a bill that added the words "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. The smaller picture there shows the first solar panel that we have come to know as very familiar these days. But in 1954, this was the first solar panel that was actually able to convert the sun's rays into electricity. And on the far lower right there, that is Roger Bannister. He's an Englishman who was the first man to run the mile in under 4 minutes. He ran it in 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds on May 6, 1954, which happened to be Willie Mays' 23rd birthday. And I did a little research and found that Willie Mays on that day hit a home run on his birthday against the Cincinnati Redlegs, that they were called at the time, because some of you may know from baseball history, the Reds changed their name temporarily to the Redlegs because in the 1950s we were in the midst of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and the term Reds was used to identify those who were Communist Party members. This shot is literally the first detonation by the United States of the hydrogen bomb. This occurred on March 1st, 1954, and I remember as a kid in the early 60s going to school, and we had air raids and so forth. We were preparing for any type of nuclear attacks, and the hydrogen bomb, I remember seeing images of that in magazines, and it was just absolutely frightening, to put it mildly. Coincidentally, on March 1st, 1954, Willie Mays rejoined the Giants after a 2-year service in the United States Army. The picture you're looking at here is the first issue of Sports Illustrated, which was on August 16th, 1954. You have Eddie Matthews at County Stadium, and the catcher there is Wes Westrum of the New York Giants, who played in the game we'll be looking at today. That issue and the second issue actually had inserts of several 1954 Topps cards, and on the particular page you're looking at now, you have 3 Hall of Famers there, Ted Williams in the lower left, and then Gil Hodges and Larry Doby in the middle row on the right side there. This next page, Sam Snead won the Masters tournament at Augusta in 1954. The Cleveland Browns prevailed in the NFL championship against the Detroit Lions. Had the Indians won the World Series, Cleveland would have had quite a sports year. But as it turns out, Cleveland was swept by the Giants in 4 games, but the Browns did prevail in the NFL championship. And on the far right there, that is George Mikan of the Minneapolis Lakers, and they won the NBA championship against a team called the Syracuse Nationals. And the smaller picture there is actually the rookie card for George Mikan. Here's a couple of pictures of Willie Mays as he's making his start in the military. But as I mentioned a few seconds ago, he returned to the Giants March 1st of 1954 and reported to spring training. And here's a picture of Willie getting his swings in during batting practice. And some more great shots here. Relaxed time in Phoenix, Arizona, where the Giants held their annual spring training camp. Leo Durocher, the manager of the Giants at the time, has a classic quote here, and I'll just read it for those of you who might just be listening. "If I live to be 100, I will never forget the return of Willie Mays. We were out on the field playing an intra-squad game early in spring training. He had gotten out of the Army a couple of weeks before we expected, taken a plane right to Phoenix, gone right to the clubhouse and put on his uniform. Then Durocher sent him directly to center field. First batter hits a tremendous drive, no chance whatsoever to get it. You know very well what happened. Willie got it. First time up, hits a single. Before it's over, he wallops a home run." It's classic Willie Mays. Here's some photographs of during the season. Willie making a great catch in front of an excited crowd there against the wall, taking a pitch. We'll review his statistics for the year. He had an MVP season, leading off with a .345 batting average. He had 41 home runs. Scored 119 times. Had 195 hits. 110 RBI. And an on-base percentage of .411. What a year. He was really gaining in popularity and notoriety. And in May, Willie was on the cover of Time magazine. Here's just a recap of his statistics after 2 years in the military. He's an all-star, the league's MVP, World Series champion, and you see his numbers there. Giants won the pennant. You have Al Dark and Whitey Lockman holding the banner there in front of an excited crowd ready to go. All right, let's get to the game. 1954 World Series, Game 1, Wednesday, September 29th. The attendance at the Polo Grounds was 52,751. Here's a picture of overhead view of the Polo Grounds, which I thought was a very distinctive shape for a stadium, especially considering today's modern stadiums. Also, you see the program, and there's a game ticket. And I put together some statistics that I thought were pretty interesting. The game ticket was $7.35 to get you into the World Series in 1954. In today's dollars, that would be $83.81. But the average price of the most recent World Series ticket in 2023 would be approximately $1,590. A little bit of a difference between 1954 and 2024. Typically, before many games, when they were playing at home, Willie would often play in the streets of Harlem. He lived not too far from the stadium, and I believe was actually able to walk to the stadium. but he would often engage in games of stickball with the kids, the local neighbors, and he'd take them out for ice cream afterwards. And I can imagine, maybe not on day one of the World Series, but for many games, he put a lot of smiles on kids' faces and a little ice cream in their bellies. And here's Willie walking over to the stadium with his duffel bag and his bats ready to go. And the grounds crew's getting the stadium ready. And now we'll take a look at the team photos. Good looking group there. If you look hard, I think you'll see at least 4 Hall of Famers in that group. And here's the Giants team photograph. And for all of you who love to collect autographs, I think this would be quite a catch to have the original of this photograph. And there's, again, at least 3 or 4 Hall of Famers in this group, including Willie Mays, Monty Irvin, Leo DeRocher, Hoyt Wilhelm. And if you look carefully, you see Joe Garagiola, the famous broadcaster, who had been literally traded to the Giants on September 1st, just a few weeks before the World Series. He did not play in the World Series in 1954, but he was a member of the Giants. And here we go. I can picture myself, and I'm sure many of us would have loved to have been at that game. Take a look at the starting lineup for the Cleveland Indians, who compiled at the time, a record 111 victories during the 54 season. In left field was Al Smith. Second base, Bobby Avila, who was the American League batting champion with an average of 340, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood. Larry Doby in center field, future Hall of Famer. Al Rosen, the 1953 MVP, at third base. At first base, Vic Wertz, who will play a pivotal role in this game. In right field, Dave Philly. At shortstop, George Strickland. Jim Hegan, a very high-quality defensive catcher. And at pitcher, future Hall of Famer Bob Lemon. And here's a picture of the starting lineup. On the far left is the manager, Al Lopez, also a Hall of Famer. To his immediate left, Al Smith, Bobby Avila, Larry Doby, Al Rosen, Vic Wertz, Dave Philly, George Strickland, Mike Hegan, and pitcher Bob Lemon. And here's how the Cleveland Indians set up defensively, showing their baseball cards, which you will see in a second video. And for the Giants, 97 wins in 1954. At first base, Whitey Lockman. At shortstop, Al Dark. Don Mueller batting third in right field. Future Hall of Famer, and many consider the greatest baseball player of all time. Willie Mays in center field. Hank Thompson at third base. Monty Irvin, future Hall of Famer, in left field. At second base, Davey Williams. Behind the plate is Wes Westrum, and the pitcher, Sal Magley. Here's a photograph of the Giants starting lineup. From left to right, Whitey Lockman, Davey Williams, Hank Thompson, Al Dark, Don Mueller, Willie Mays, Monty Irvin, and the catcher, Wes Westrum. And here's how the Giants set up on the field defensively. Two pitchers. Sal Magley compiled a record of 14-6 during the regular season. He was 37 years old at this point in his career. And Bob Lemon had one of the best years of his career, 23-7 overall record. And this was the sixth of 7 20-game win seasons that Lemon compiled during the course of his Hall of Fame career. Okay, we go to the first inning. And Sal Magley is throwing to Al Smith, who leads off, and Al was hit by a pitch on the fourth pitch of the game. He took first base. Bobby Avila then comes up, and he singles to right. Don Mueller in right field bobbled the ball, which allowed Smith to move to third base. So we have runners on first and third, and then um, Vic Wertz comes up and he triples into right center field, scoring both Avila and Al Smith. And here's a picture of Vic coming into third base, sliding. Hank Thompson was trying to make that tag, but Vic came in and slid in safely. Now we move to the third inning, and Bob Lemon is throwing to Whitey Lockman, who singles to right field. Al Dark then comes up and singles over second base, and Lockman's able to move over to third. Mueller grounds out, but Lockman is able to score on the ground out. Then Willie Mays comes up and he walks. And then Mueller moves to second on the walk. So we have Giants at first and second. Hank Thompson then comes up and singles to right, scoring Mueller. And the inning ends, and the score of the game at this point is now 2-2. Now we move to the eighth inning, which is a pivotal point in the game, and in many respects, a pivotal game in baseball history. Pivotal inning in baseball history. So we have Larry Doby comes up, and he's walked by Sal Maglie, who's actually thrown a very solid game at this point. He had a rocky first inning, as we saw, but he settled down and pitched very well. But he walks Doby to start the eighth inning. Then Al Rosen comes up, and he hits a sharp ball to shortstop and was able to beat out the throw. So we have runners on first and second. At this point, Leo DeRocher sends out pitching coach Frank Fitzsimmons, and he brings in Don Little to replace Maglie. So Maglie makes the long walk back to the clubhouse in center field at the Polo Grounds. So now we have the setup. Willie's in center field. Vic Wertz comes up to the plate, and we're ready to take a look at one of the most famous catches in World Series history. Vic Wertz hits the ball deep, deep, deep to to center field. Here's the path of the ball. And if you take a look at the diagram, you'll see at this point, Vic Wertz is already rounded first by the time Willie comes up with the ball. Larry Doby is scrambling back to second base to tag up, and Al Rosen's going to have to move back to first base. Here's a close-up of the actual catch, and that's Jack Brickhouse, Hall of Fame broadcaster, broadcast the famous call, which I've put here for you in a text, and I'll read it for those who might just be listening. And I can't emulate Jack Brickhouse for sure, but I'll do my best. There's a long drive way back at center field, way back. It is, oh my, caught by Mays. The runner on second, Doby, is able to go to third. Willie Mays just brought the crowd to its feet with a catch which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people. Boy, notice where that 483-foot mark is in center field. The ball itself, Russ, you know this ballpark better than anyone else I know, had to go about 460, didn't it? Hodges says it certainly did, and I don't see how Willie did it, but he's been doing it all year. And then Brickhouse responds with probably the understatement of the year. Willie Mays just made the catch of the day. Here's two vantage points again for you. Willie makes the throw, and Willie actually felt, he made comments later that the throw was actually the most important part of that play, because had he hesitated, it's very possible that Doby would have been able to score from second base, and the complexion of the game would have changed completely. So here's a frame by frame, and of course the famous 1959 Topps baseball card depicting the segments of the catch and throw. That's a great subset of cards, by the way, which I have actually, I think, just recently completed, and I'm anxious to show that subset to you in a few weeks. Okay, so now we have the 10th inning, and the score remained at 2-2, and the Giants come up in the bottom of the 10th, and at this point, Mueller strikes out. Willie Mays comes up, and he then walks. And on the first pitch to Hank Thompson, Willie steals second base. So Hank Thompson is then walked. So we have runners on first and second. And then pinch hitter Dusty Rhodes comes up hitting for Monty Irvin. Dusty Rhodes is a left-hander and really had become a very, very potent pinch hitter during the course of the 1954 season. He actually batted, he had 15 hits and 45 at bats and hit at least a couple of home runs as a pinch hitter. So he was a very, very reliable person in this type of situation. So Bob Lemon, who is still continued through the game, he pitched full 9 innings. Now he's in the midst of the 10th inning, probably tiring a little bit, but he throws the pitch to Dusty Rhodes, and what happens? Bam! Dusty basically lofts a pop fly, a deep pop fly, if you will, that it's a very short porch in the Polo Grounds, less than 300 feet away. And Dave Pope, who had come in as a defensive replacement, tried valiantly to catch the ball, but it made it into the stands and the ball dropped back down onto the field. What I thought was really interesting, I did a little research and I found that Dave Pope did not have a 1954 card. You see his 1955 Bowman there. But I found in 1956, take a look at this. Topps was kind enough to turn Dave Pope's attempted catch into a catch. If you look carefully on the card, the ball is actually in the glove, which I thought was really pretty cool. Here's Dusty rounding third base on this walk-off home run. And he's greeted with a lot of enthusiasm, obviously, by his teammates. What a great thrill that must have been. A walk-off home run in the World Series. Al Lopez, great quote here. We were beaten by the longest out, referring to Willie Mays' catch, and the shortest home run of the year, referring to Dusty Rhodes' home run that you just saw. Great, great quote. And here, a couple more photographs for you to enjoy. Dusty Rhodes and Vic Wertz, two of the main players in Game 1 of the World Series, and of course, Willie Mays. And Willie really downplayed the catch itself. And he admitted later that while it was a great catch, he felt there were a couple other catches he made in career were much more difficult. Here's Willie and Don Mueller and Dusty Rhodes showing off their World Series rings. And the Giants return home from Cleveland after sweeping the World Series in 4 games. There's their team photograph. Here's Willie with Whitey Lockman's bat engraved with the world champion designation, the World Series ring, and that glove is Willie's glove that was used in that particular game. And that's going to conclude this video. I'm going to show you the cards from the game, all the players who participated in that game, and I'm going to do that in a separate video, which I hope to post in just a couple of days. So thanks very much for listening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time around.